Okay, so I want to congratulate you for getting this far into the course. I know we're not even on half the course yet, but this was quite technical so far, and it's not fun. It's so fun to talk about design, and I love to talk about it, but understanding what custom post types are and how to work with dynamic content, how to build in a smart way so that you don't waste a lot of time is something I want you guys to understand before we move on to the fun stuff with the container and later with animations and all kinds of things. Sometimes we have to go through the technical stuff because I hope you're seeing so far that Elementor is not as easy as they make it look, especially when you want to work in the most efficient way possible, which also keeps your website fast. Because the things we have covered so far by using the theme builder to its absolute limits makes your website so much faster because the less content is saved, the less it has to load. So that's all for this episode. We're now gonna jump to the more visual part of the course, which is mastering layout and positioning. So we're gonna finally dive into the container. I'm very excited for that because then you're finally gonna learn how you can create these crazy looking designs like this one and many more. So let's go to the next chapter. Okay, welcome back. In this episode, I want to talk about the saved template section inside of the Elementor theme builder. It's also one of these features that not enough people use, in my opinion, but it's really useful. I think this also has to do with the fact that Elementor's naming is not that good. Saved templates, it's called, even though everything in the theme builder is also a template and it's saved. I mean, technically, these are all saved templates, but Elementor gave it a different spot. Let me show you what it is. So for example, you have this prices overview over here, and you want to display that pricing overview on 2 pages. So what do? You could say like, okay, let's make a custom post type, but this is really hard because they all have different kinds of content, right? This is not just easy to do with a text box. You have to use the icon row in order to create this. And you could use repeaters, but that's a little bit complex. So sometimes it's just easier to create a saved template and then use it. So this is useful when you have multiple widgets that work together, where a custom post type is just a little bit hard. So these pricing tables also appear on the prices page. So yes, you could save them in 2 places, but you can also do it in 1 to work as much globally as possible. So what you simply do is you just create a template from here. So you click on add new, you select container, and then you create a template. So for example, pricing tables. You create the template, then you drag in the widgets that you want over here. So let's say that we drag in a few pricing tables like that. I'm going to duplicate it. All right, let me change the content real quick. Okay, so let's say that this is the design that you want. You can then publish it, and now it's saved into the saved templates. You don't have to set up any conditions. What you can do, you can just go to a page. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on exit. I'm going to go to a page where I want to insert it. So let's say the pricing page. Now what I can do is I can search here for template, which is confusing because what is a template? This is just for the saved templates, as they call it. So you drag it in, then you select the name. So we called it pricing table. As you can see right here, that's what it does. It doesn't display it perfectly. And that is probably because I've done something wrong inside of my template. So make sure to always check that. As you can see, this is still unboxed. So make sure to put it on full width because the box feature is something you set up on the page itself. This is more a topic for the next chapter about containers. But I just wanted to say when you use this template, make sure you put it on full width. So now when I refresh this page, it will probably work. It still doesn't work. I don't know why. Oh, and that is because I need to put these things on grow. Now it will probably work. But that is more a styling problem, which is not part of this chapter. But I just wanted to tackle that quickly. Another great example is for an FAQ. This is also something that on many websites appears on multiple pages. On this website, it doesn't. But I know from experience that an FAQ is also something that appears in many places. Okay, another great example to use the template feature is for a sidebar. So sometimes you have a sidebar. For example, on this blog, we have a sidebar. We don't only use that here on the archive page, but we also use it on the single post template. So here I've also used the template. Let me show you. Let me delete this real quick. I'm going to use Command E or Control E to go to the single post template from the blog. And here you can see that I cannot edit the widgets in here. I've used the template widget and then selected it. And if I then Command click on this button, then I will actually go into the saved template called sidebar blog. To save templates, as you can see, here it is. So if you know that you use the sidebar like this on multiple pages, save it one time in the saved templates and then import the template widget and select it, which is another way to work more globally, which is always the best way to do it. Let's go to the next episode. All right, welcome back to another episode where we're going to talk about the single page template, a feature that not a lot of people use, but it's actually really useful. So let's say that you have a page like the privacy policy. It's just a simple page. So what many people do is they just go to pages, they create a new page, and then they build it with Elementor. But what happens a lot of the times is that you have pages which look very similar. For example, you have a privacy policy, but you also have a terms and conditions page or a refund policy, for example. And all of these pages look the same. So now that you know what custom post types are, you could say, well, let's just create a custom post type for all of the legal pages. But then you have to choose a name for it. You could call it legal, and then the link would be your website name /legal/privacy policy. And yes, that's possible, but there's also a way to still use the pages and then create a template that uses the same design. And that is what you can do with the single page template. You can still use the pages, but you control the design from one place inside of Elementor. Let me show you another great example, because many business websites have simple text pages like this. So I had a few clients already who had websites where they had pages like this, well, 10 of them, and I had to put them all in the menu, and I had to create all of them with Elementor, and then when something changes, I had to change 10 pages in terms of design. It was not a very nice workflow, but I didn't know how to make it better, and I didn't want to use custom post types. So for business websites that have a lot of pages that in terms of design look exactly the same, but the only thing that's different is content, the single page template is also very useful. So let me show you how it works. You can create your single page template from here. I will show you that in a minute, how it looks on the inside. And then on the pages, what's actually happening is that it's not an Elementor page, it's just a normal page. You never click on this button because you want to use this text box. So what the single page template does is just using this title and the content you've put in over here to create the page. So let's open the theme builder and let me show you how it works. So you click on your single page template, you can create a new one like this. Let's call it Legal Pages version 2 because I already have one. And then all you have to do is drag in your post title and the post content, because again, the post content is this box, this content box that you see over here. So then you drag in your post content. Right now it's just loading in a blog post. So in order to preview what you're doing, you can always go to the settings, then to preview. And then over here, don't select a custom post type, but just select a single page. So you could, for example, say privacy policy like that, apply and preview, and then it drags in the dynamic content from the privacy policy page. I'm now on terms and conditions. So let's take a look at the privacy policy. As you can see, it's not an Elementor page, it's a normal page. It's dragging in this title and this text. In order to prove my point, I will change something here. I will make this lorem 2 ipsum and see if it actually shows that. So I'm going to refresh. Oh, first make sure to save the draft and then refresh. And now it should drag in the change. Here you can see it, lorem 2 ipsum. But then how does Elementor know what pages you want to use this template? That is what you do in the conditions. And it works a little bit differently than normally. So you need to set it up per page. There's a little bit more work, but it's worth it because the more you can control from one place in terms of design, the more time you're gonna save. So let me show you the final version because I don't want to set it up right here because I already set one up. I'm gonna open my first one with Elementor, by the way, and comment or control clicking on the link to open it in a new tab. So over here, this template, this page template is on the privacy policy, refund, terms and conditions. Oh, and refund again. I don't need that. So just 3 pages. That's all you do. So you just click over here. Instead of post, you go to pages and you just search for the page you want to add. Easy as that. And then you click save. And then these pages will use that design even though these pages are not created with Elementor. So if you have pages on your website that have the same design but don't need to be a custom post type because you don't want to add that link and you just want to have them in pages, then you can use the single page template. All right, that was it for this episode. A short one. Let's go to the next one. Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to talk about the archive template, which automatically generates pages according to categories and tags, as you can see right here in a web shop, but also for a blog where you have different categories. For example, this one, knowledge and insight, it automatically generates that page, and it's all done with one archive template. And you need to use your loop grid inside of it in order to make it work. So for example, this page, testimonials page, it looks like it's a normal page because it says /testimonial. But when you're going to take a look in the dashboard and go to pages, you will see that the testimonial page doesn't exist because it only lives here inside of the theme builder. If you go to archive, and here it is, testimonials archive. So when you open this, you will see that here is the actual page, but it's not really a page, it's an archive template. So why did I use an archive template over here instead of just creating a normal page and then linking that into the menu and just insert a loop grid in here? Because that's also possible. And the reason is because it's just a little bit more safe for the future. If you already know that the main purpose of this page is going to be to display a list with a loop grid, then it's better to create an archive, because in the future, let's say that your client says like, hey, I would like to categorize all of the testimonials. Let's just create categories. Then it's already an archive template, and that makes it a little bit easier to edit. But it's also just nice, I think so, to have all of your archive pages inside of here to keep the pages a little bit more clean, because for bigger websites this can become quite a big mess, which is something you do not want. So if you have an archive, I would just create it over here. But I have to say, for this testimonials page, I could have also just created a normal page and then inserted the loop grid in here. But the difference with an archive template is that you have the conditions and you need to tell Elementor what it's an archive for. And in this case, of course, it's for the testimonials custom post type. So that's what you select. Or for example, for the jobs archive, I also have a jobs archive. Let's open that. I also used the loop grid over here. As you can see, posts, job loops, that is the loop. And then in the display conditions, it says jobs archive. Okay, that's important. So there are a few things you need to know. First of all, in the query settings, you need to select current query. This is important because normally you would say like, okay, we're going to just use the testimonials, but then it will not display categories because it will just display the normal list with testimonials or jobs or whatever you want. But if you leave current query here, then that means no matter what kind of category you click on, it will display that within the condition that it's from the job custom post type. So this is different than just adding a loop grid on a normal page where you would select jobs over here if you want to display the list. But if you use an archive template, make sure it's on current query so that when you click on another category, it will just display that. So let me show you an example with the blog, because that is where it's actually relevant, because we have categories over here. So over here it's the same. We have post, blog loop, and then in the query, current query. Because if we would just do post over here, blog post, and we would save it, this archive, and we would then go back to our blog and we would click on a category, then it would still display the same post. As you can see, it doesn't even work. It doesn't just display the updates. So again, when you're using an archive template, you should in the query put it on current query. And then when you refresh it, it actually shows the posts that are part of this category. So for the blog, I have to use the category archive because I want to have my category pages as well. So for the blog, you have to set it up like that. For the testimonial, I didn't have to, but I do it to be future proof. The same argument can be made for the jobs since it doesn't have categories, but I just do it for the future. And on static pages like the home, I just import the loop grid like that, like we did in the last episode. But there's one more thing you need to know. And that is that if you want the categories to work as well, the auto-generated category pages, you have to, inside of the conditions, also include the categories. Because for some reason, if you just put it on post archive and you save and close, then it doesn't work. Let me show that again. Okay, knowledge and insights. As you can see, now it goes back to the default archive from Hello Elementor, which is not what you want. So you always want to make sure that inside of the conditions, if you have categories, also make sure that you select the categories from the actual post type you have. So if you have another custom post type like this, you select this one and this one. So 2 lines. For now, I just need to put it on categories because we're editing the blog page, but make sure you have these 2. Okay, that's an important one to know. And then there's one more thing that you need to know, and that is that sometimes it happens that custom post type plugins not automatically create an archive. What I mean by that is, let's go back to our new website. We created our post types inside of ACF. You might use another plugin like Jet Engine or CPT UI, but sometimes inside of the settings, you have to tell the plugin that this post type can be used as an archive, because that is not always default. Inside of ACF, it's in here, URLs, and then archive. This by default is turned off. And when that's turned off, then you don't see the actual option in here. It just doesn't display it. So by default, the custom post type doesn't always has an archive. So make sure to check it inside of your custom post type plugin, whatever it is, if the archive is turned on. Okay, now let me show you one more example from WooCommerce, how we're going to do that, because that's a little bit different. So when you have a web shop, you need to create another kind of archive, because if you go to the theme builder and you click on archive, you will see that there's no product archive here, because for some reason WooCommerce creates a second button over here. So here is where I've set up the product archive, all products archives. You edit that with Elementor, you open it, and here I've set up my loop grid for the product. So it is a different loop for the product, which has an image, the categories, the title, and the price. I display 3 columns. You can, of course, change all of these settings. And in the query, it says current query. And then if you go to display conditions, it says all products archives. And for some reason, this already works with categories. For WooCommerce, you don't have to add another rule with product categories because it simply already works. I also don't know why, but to be sure, you can also both leave them on. And as you can see, it still works. So it's always safer to make sure that inside of your conditions, you have the normal archives and you also add the categories so that you make sure it works. If you use tags, of course, then you also have to add tags, but most people will just use categories. So that's it. That's all you need to know about archives. Very powerful feature that saves you a lot of time in creating pages. So I hope that you liked this one, and let's now move on to the next episode. All right, welcome back. So now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into dynamic content, because now you understand how WordPress and Elementor work together. We can actually start working with dynamic content. And in order to do that, we need to make it a little bit more practical. So what I've done is I've created some simple wireframes, almost like sketches, to explain dynamic content in a visual way. And then in the upcoming episodes, we will actually do it inside of WordPress with Elementor so that you know how to create all of these things. So it's going to become quite technical, but I've tried to make it as easy and visual as possible. So let's just get started. Let's just start in the front with the homepage. So as you know, you can create the homepage with the pages feature inside of WordPress. So you create a page like this. You call it home, and then when you click this button, this whole content box will be taken over by Elementor, which will then allow you to drag and drop widgets. So then you can, for example, create a header like this with a beautiful drawing of a shoe that I made. Right? So this is static content because this is only displayed on this page. Remember, static is when it's saved in one place, and dynamic is when it's loaded in from somewhere else. You now know that the menu, or the header, I should say, because this part is called the menu, and this whole thing is called the header, and the footer is saved on all of the pages, so that is dynamic, right? And then the inside of a page is static. But here you can see that even within the home page, you can have dynamic features, even though this page is a static page. Because on the home page, for example, I have a preview of the last 3 blog posts from the blog. And now you know that the posts are saved inside of the post over here. So here you can see them side by side. This is the blog page where all of the blog posts are, and these are the last 3 blog posts. Let's say that it's filtered in a chronological way. So these are the 3 latest blog posts, which also show on the home page. The image that we see right here, the featured image, is of course also used inside of the blog post itself. The post title is also used over here and also used over here. And this is where that post title is inside of WordPress. So this homepage is created with the pages feature inside of WordPress, but the blog page is actually not created with the pages feature. You could do that, and I see many people do it, but there is a better way to do it. And that is to use an archive page. So the word archive just means a place where things are stored, I guess. So a normal blog post page like this, where you see a lot of blog posts, can be seen as an archive. But in WordPress, archive means something specific. An archive is not just a place where a lot of content is. It's an automatically generated page, which will also work for categories and tags. So let me show you what I mean. Let's go back to a website that actually has some content. So my scooter website again. All right, we go to the blog over here. And you can see that we have the blog post, right? This is the archive. This is the same page as this. We have post title over here, but we also, for example, have a category over here. So if we click on the category, we go to a page called Tips and Tricks. The link is /category/tips and tricks, but on this website, I did not create a page that is called Tips and Tricks. As you can see, it's not here in this list. It's also not in the post. So where is that? Well, it's actually a category from a post. Here you can see the categories. So when you have a lot of blog posts, you can create categories to categorize your blog posts, which can then make it easier for people to find things or to find related topics. So for blogs, let's say that they're interested in the subject, then the user can click on the category and they will get all kinds of blog posts from that category. For web shops, this is also really relevant because with web shops, a lot of the times you have a lot of products. This is a super small web shop, only with 5, but many web shops have 100 or more products. So then it's nice when you click on a scooter, for example, and you know that the scooter is has the category black. When you click on black, that you go to the page black. And whatever category you add, it automatically creates that page. And that is what an archive does. So when you create an archive page and somebody clicks on a category, doesn't matter what the category is, it will auto-generate that page, like it says over here, auto-generate. So this is great because you don't have to generate a page for each category, whether you have a blog with multiple categories or a product web shop with multiple categories. And if you've never seen it before, inside of your blog post on the right, by default, you have the categories over here. You can add, you can delete, and you can assign blog posts to these categories. And then no matter what the category is, it will always be created automatically, which of course is what you want because that saves a lot of time. So once you create an archive template for your blog, you never have to create pages for the categories of the blog because these are auto-generated. So this is called an archive template. And this is called a single post template, which is the template that is used for all of the blog posts. They call it single post template, but a better name would be all posts template, because this template is used for all of the blog posts. For now, the most important thing to know is that you do not have to create these pages in the pages overview, but many of them are auto-generated. And I want to tackle 2 more things before we move on to the other examples, and that is a loop and a loop grid. So inside of Elementor, you have a feature called a loop. So what is a loop? A loop is basically this. This is a loop. This is a loop. So a loop is a preview for a post. So this is a loop because this is a preview for the big post that is behind that. When you click on it, you go to the main post. And this one as well, right? All of these things are loops. And this one is also a loop. And this one, this whole thing is a loop. And a loop grid is simply a grid with a lot of loops in it. Whether it goes like this or it's just one row like this, it doesn't matter. This is a loop grid. So a loop grid consists of loops. That's it. And a loop grid literally is an archive, but in WordPress, it's not an archive. It's only an archive when it's an archive template, which then automatically creates the subpages like categories and tags. You also have tags, by the way, in WordPress, which is another way to categorize things, but categories are the main thing you're going to use. And the reason why a loop grid is not the same as an archive is because you can use a loop grid on a normal page, like over here. This is a loop grid, which is used on a normal page. So a loop grid can be used on an archive, but not always. Okay, I hope that makes sense because we're now going to move on to the web shop post type. So far we've talked about the blog post type. It's a type of post. And now we're going to go to the web shop post type. It's basically the same. The only thing that's different is the fields. So when you install the web shop plugin in WordPress, you get different fields. You get a pricing field, for example, which of course is not relevant for a blog, right? On a blog post, you have a title, you have text, you have an image, some categories. But if you install the web shop plugin, which is called WooCommerce inside of WordPress, then you get products, which are also posts. It's just a list of things that all look the same, right? All of these products have a page that look very similar. And inside of each product, you have different fields. We still have the title. We still have a field for text. We still have an image, but we have more. We have pricing field over here, inventory fields, a sale input field. There are different input fields here than the post type, the normal post type. But technically, it's the same. So you also have an archive for your web shop, which is a lot smarter to do than just create a page that's called shop, which is possible, and then just drag your loop grid into it, right? You could do that, but for web shops, a lot of the times you also want category pages because it just makes the experience for the user nicer. So then it's better to create an archive template and then drag your loop grid into that so that the subpages are automatically generated. And the single post templates for products are also auto-generated. So here's an example. Let me show you the real one. So here we go to products again, and let's say we open the Segway scooter. Let's see how that looks. Yes, we have an image over here. This is the title. We have a price. That's the price from that input field I just showed you. We have the categories, some text. We have an add to cart button and related products, as you can see right here. So web shop products are just other kinds of posts with different fields, like a pricing field, right? But technically it's very similar. So now that you also understand the web shop post type, we can go to the last one, which is the custom post type. So what is a custom post type? So sometimes it's not enough to have a list of the normal posts and a list of products. Sometimes on your website, you need more kinds of lists. And let me show you an example. I think I showed this one already before, but here we have a testimonial section, which is a list with similar kind of field, right? We have a text input field, image, a name for a person, and then a title for a person. And here we can see 4 loops, right? Which are in a loop grid, because these 4 are a loop grid. And then when you click on see more testimonials, you go to all of the testimonials, which are now in a 3-column grid, in a loop grid. And the loop grid here shows more posts. But these are custom posts, right? Because on this website, we already have a blog. So we need an extra list of posts in order to do this. And that is what we call a custom post type, right? So we have the web shop post type, the normal post type for blog posts. But when you want an extra list, for example, for testimonials, you create a custom post type. And then what you get is also a list of posts in the same way as we have the normal posts. It's just a list of posts. And when you open one of these posts, you will see that the link is /testimonial/ then the name of the actual post. Here, Chelsea Whitmore. That is not a normal page. It's /testimonial/ Chelsea Whitmore. This page is automatically generated by WordPress. This one doesn't look that pretty. Why not? Well, because we don't use it. So if you go back to the design, here we have a list of posts, but there is no page behind these loops. Sometimes you simply don't need that, but you need a list of posts. So for example, these testimonials, this is enough. I don't need to click on this to see more about this testimonial, but it is really smart to use the post type feature for this for two reasons. One is that you can then control all of the content from one place, which I've explained before. And two, because your clients can just easily add a new testimonial over here without opening the Elementor editor, without messing up your design. They could just easily add a new testimonial over here and then add their title, add their text, and add another field that you may have added and a picture. They click on publish, and then a new post, a new custom post type, a new testimonial will automatically be added to this list. So here you can start to see the benefit of using custom post types instead of just dragging and dropping widgets into the page. Let's go to another example, which is the themes page. This is also a thing that many business websites needs. A theme page. You know how it goes in companies. New people get hired, people get fired. They need to change it all the time. And the last thing you want is your client constantly calling you like, hey, can you change this person? Can you change that? I mean, you can do it. You can charge for it if you want, but it's a lot easier to just give them a login, just make a user for them, a WordPress user, and then just tell them like, hey, listen, you just click on Teams. If somebody is moving from the company, you put them in the trash. If there's a new person, you just add them. You add their name, you add their title, you add their image, click on publish, and a new person will be added to this page. Another example. Let's go to this one over here. Also a common thing which you find on many websites. So what this is a job overview page. So many companies, they are hiring and they have multiple positions open. So then it would be nice if you have a jobs page where you can list different jobs, which of course are also posts, custom post types with information about these things. For these ones, you want more information, right? Because a small post preview or loop, I should say, like this is not enough to display everything about the job. So then you also need to create a single post template for each job in this example, right? Where you also have your title, you have your text, you have more text, and you maybe even have a form. I don't know what you want, doesn't really matter. You can put it in here. So these are all great examples to use custom post types to make your website a lot faster and makes it easy for your clients to edit the website. I will show you in a future episode how to create custom post types, but there's one more concept which I want you to understand before we move on, and that is custom fields. Because as you may have seen, we have some extra fields over here. We have this one and this one. So what is that? That is an extra field which is added to this post type. So by default, what do you get from the post type? You get a few input fields for the title, you get a content box, you get the categories, you get the tags, like I said before, and you get an image. But sometimes that's not enough. For example, for this job, you want a field to display how many hours this job requires, or maybe the salary, or here, location, or whatever. So then you will need extra fields. So I'm going to click on jobs, and then let's open one to show you. So here you can see it looks just like a blog post. We have a title, content, but then there are more fields over here. Look at this, hours per month, and some images, some extra text, as you can see, location. So these are extra fields, and these fields are called custom fields. So they're not the normal fields, which you already get, they're custom fields. That's it. So let's take a look on how this page looks. This neurotechnology researcher earns $3,800 per month. But you know what? Nobody applies for this job. You know what? We're going to make it 1,000 more. I'm going to click on update and I'm going to refresh this page. Boom, there it is. And then it's automatically also changed on the jobs overview page. So here you can see this field is also used inside of this loop. So you can also add fields inside of the loops. So you see how it all now comes together. It's beautiful and it works very well. And you can then decide if you want to make these posts, these loops clickable to get more information. So for example, right here with the jobs, right, you have a salary maybe. You have a salary field which you want to show on the preview, on the loop. And then inside you have more information. But you can also choose to just display a list and not make these posts clickable. Because for a Teams page or a testimonial page, that is enough. But it's still a custom post type because that has a lot of benefits, which I just showed you. So I hope that this gives you a better understanding of how dynamic content works inside of WordPress together with Elementor. We haven't touched Elementor yet because I have just showed you everything inside of WordPress. So what we're going to do right now in the upcoming episodes is we're going to open the actual templates, and I will show you how you can save these Elementor templates to make sure that they show up in the right places. And I will also show you how to create these custom post types and even these custom fields. So it's going to be fun, a little bit technical, but very important. I will see you in the next episode.